have the Pledge of Allegiance and the roll call of members. And then as a board, we have to go into a short executive session with our attorney. So we're going to go ahead and do that, even though there are still some people coming in. Then by the time our executive session is over, everyone should be in the auditorium. So if everyone could stand for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could we have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Breen.
Here.
Mr. Francis.
He's coming.
Mr. Hoff.
Here.
Mr. Hoover.
He's on his way.
Mrs. Irwin Adams. Here. Mr. Johnston. Mr. Cruz.
He's here. He's here.
Mrs. McGinnis. Dr. Malloy.
Here.
Thank you. Okay, we are going into executive session. We will be back shortly. I want to apologize to everyone that it took a little bit longer than what we expected, but we did have an executive session. Can you hear me now? I think this is the reason. We did have an executive session this evening for potential litigation and safety and security. And we are going to vote on one item and then we will get back to hearing from citizens. So if you could just bear with us a couple more minutes and we'll get this out of the way and then we will get back to hearing from citizens. Construction change order. Can I have a motion and a second?
So moved. Second.
Any conversation, any questions?
Is this final payment?
This is the closeout of the Farfield, both Farfield Mechanical and Farfield Electrical.
Okay.
Anyone else? All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. And I want to thank Eric Hoff because it's my understanding, because of his expertise, he was able to get this number down to where it is. It started out much higher. And thank you very much to Eric for doing that. Okay, now we're going to go to hearing from citizens. And the first person on my list is Nicole Nagel. If she could come to the microphone, please.
Good evening. Common sense and critical thinking seem to be things of the past. Now it's, well,
Can't hear you.
is that better?
Yes.
Common sense and critical thinking seem to be things of the past. Now it's, well, so-and-so said this is how it is, we must listen. We've been encouraged to listen to the science, but when you find a reputable source that disagrees with what Dr. Fauci says, you're told, no, not that science. The governor was stripped of his powers for a good reason. He was abusing them. He was mad at school districts who weren't doing what he wanted, so he had the Department of Health do his dirty work. He even essentially said that in his press conference last week. The order that the acting secretary put out is beyond the scope of her authority. There is no outbreak or state of emergency that is listed with the Act of 1955 that she chose to use. The Department of Ed has now also joined in making threats, which according to my sources at the Department of Ed are empty threats. Why can a neighboring school district who uses the same solicitor as we do follow the exemption in the order set out by the Department of Health, but Altoona won't? They're requiring a doctor's signature. You all preach every meeting about the safety of our children. It is embarrassing that the second day of school, we had a teacher taken to the emergency room because of a fight in the cafeteria. That is what's more important than whether or not I choose if my child wears a mask or not. You stripped my rights away from choosing that. If somebody wants their child to wear a mask to school, they still have that right to do so. But we have far more important things to worry about. You had a student murdered, allegedly by other students in this school district, but we're worried about if Susie Q is wearing a mask or not. But if we're going to be forced to have our students wear masks, and I don't know if you've seen masks from elementary kids after they've come home, they're gross inside, they're disgusting. But if we're going to be forced, then the school should be providing masks to every single child, and we should follow the masking guidelines to make them the most effective, even though it literally says on the side of the box that they're not effective towards COVID. That means that every time a child removes their mask, it needs to be replaced. That means every time a child touches their face or their mask, it needs replaced. So every child is going to need probably about 10 masks every day that the schools should be providing. Thank you.
Shauna Gailey. Is Shauna here? Okay.
Could I please ask the solicitor a question? We had a problem at the last meeting where we had somebody who was going to speak that was not a member of our school district. How do we handle that instance?
The public comment period is limited to residents and taxpayers of the school district. The board's policy 903 provides that the board requires public participants to be residents or taxpayers of the district or anyone representing a group in the community or school district, a district employee, or a district student. Those are the parameters set forth in the board policy.
So you must be a member of this school district in order to address the board.
That person that had signed up was not here and did not speak at the last
No,
meeting.
she spoke at the meeting before that. What I'm saying is it's great to hear from our citizens. They're the best, but we have to hear from our citizens and not people from other school districts coming to our district to speak. That was just a talking. I wanted to hear what the answer was. You answered it. They have to be a member of this school district.
Okay, it is Shauna Gailey. Okay, it is now Shauna Gailey's time to speak. Thank you.
So I have a medically needy child within the school district. And do you know how many times that I, as a mother, had to go against medical advice because sometimes you just have to listen to your gut. He's not as medically needy as maybe somebody with cancer or another disease, but he has his own treatment, his own stuff within his own right. You guys send an email saying, oh, well, it has to be this if a face shield cannot be used. It's in his IEP that he should be using a face shield because of his disorders. Within the first 3 days he was back at school, you guys went behind my back and had him putting a mask on that was then being put in a paper bag in a closet for him to put back on the next day without it being washed.
I hope that's not true.
It is true.
Somebody has to be, I agree, someone has to be responsible for that action. And he's allowed to wear a mask now, you know that, our face shield. And someone has to be disciplined for that. It's ridiculous.
And it continues.
One
It continues
question.
the second week of school because of his disorders. He gets sick. He gets sick a lot. He coughs. He has breathing issues. He's been out for the second week of school. Nobody knew where he was at. The superintendent, I had to call them because attendants sent me to the nurse. The nurse wouldn't answer the phone or call me back. So then I had to call Brad. I sent Brad an email, attached Jason on it. Nobody knew where he's at. Today, I then get a phone call from his support teacher. Do you know he's been out for the last 5 days? Do you know these absences? The superintendent did. If you don't know where these kids are going or if they're COVID positive or negative, what does the mask matter? And at the end of the day, it is the parent's choice. If you are not following state guidelines, this is all for stupidity. That's all I have to say.
Okay, next to speak would be Kelly Bowers.
Okay, Kelly Bowers, I have a kid at the high school. My first concern I have is, as a parent of the district, the lack of public respect some of our board members show each other. You are all the face of our district. Parents have witnessed outright bullying by some of the members of the board against each other. What example are you setting for our students? I hope from this point on, you all think about the way you are supposed to act while representing our district. Second, this mask mandate is horrible and unfair. I've been trying to wear a mask this whole time and I had to take it down. I have anxiety. I can just imagine what these kids, I can just imagine, please let me speak. I can just imagine what these kids go through. Our students, in my opinion, or I'm sorry, it's unfair to our students, in my opinion. I get that our district wants to follow it for multiple reasons, like funding and liability, yet nothing has gone out to parents that have students with IEPs. Ma'am, you may want to listen to this. If your student has an IEP or a 504 plan stating that they have a medical issue, a disability, I don't even know where the heck I'm at in this, but a medical issue, a disability, and such like that, contact your building special ed supervisor, because the district has to follow the 504 plan or the IEP. I went through this today because my son has autism, and they said last week before this came down that he'd be fine not wearing a mask. And today I was told he had to wear a mask. That was set straight. It's supposedly being set straight with everyone else. It does not apply to every student with an IEP or 504 plan, but if it's a disability, like anxiety, autism, and such like that, please contact your special ed supervisors and ask them. Also, in my opinion, if a child is exempt from a mask, there should be something that alerts teachers that they are exempt, so it doesn't cause an issue for that student to be pulled aside and questioned about why they don't have a mask on. A simple sticker on their ID badge, something like that, because last year my son had issues with the mask and he kept getting in trouble, and he was purposely doing things so that he could get kicked out of school because the teachers were engaging him, even though it was said he didn't have to wear a mask last year. Another question, are the schools separating the kids that are exempt from other students? Another question, are students being punished for mask refusal? And what is that punishment? How are students supposed to have mask breaks? This is a really important one too. How are students supposed to have mask breaks in our schools whenever we all know that social distancing isn't being applied in all the classrooms, maybe some, but not all? Whenever they can't even get enough feet away from someone. So are our kids supposed to go all day with wearing these masks? And one of the biggest things is the lack of communication between the districts and parents. Like I stated about the IEPs and 504 plans, we shouldn't have to try and find a doctor for our kids to be exempt from this whenever yins already have the paperwork. For my son, yins have had it for 12 years, and yins were trying to make me jump through hoops to get a doctor to give it to yins.
Okay, Tricia, email. I apologize if I pronounced your name wrong.
So first, I do want to address it. I have a
Is there a button on it? Button goes towards you.
Can you hear me now? There we go. Sorry. But first I want to acknowledge that I have a child that is in 5th grade at Penn Lincoln Elementary. He has a lung condition. He was actually born 2.5 months early. His lungs were not fully developed. He does still have lung problems. Last year, it was okay for these students that had lung issues, that have trouble breathing, to be in these schools without wearing a mask. This year, and I don't want anybody to take this in the wrong way, but this year, not only the doctors that they see, not only the pulmonologist that he sees, not one of them can write him a note to be exempt from wearing a mask. My child today went to school. I signed a letter. He has 5 days to have a doctor write him a note to be able to be in school and be able to have the learning. He is an honor roll student. My child was segregated today because he did not have a mask on his face. He was put in the back of the classroom. The only person he was allowed to speak to was his teacher. That is disgusting. That is absolutely disgusting when you're 5th grader. My 10-year-old son comes out of school crying, saying that was the worst day he's ever had in school his whole entire life. But it was okay for him to sit in this, it was okay for him to sit there and eat lunch with everybody without a mask on anybody's face. It was okay for him to talk to the kids when they were out in recess. But when they were in that classroom, it wasn't okay. He was only allowed to talk to the teacher. He wasn't allowed to engage with the other students. He had to be pushed the whole way to the back of the room. Now, excuse me when I say this, but if that ain't segregating, I don't know what is. It is not fair. It is not fair for our children that have medical conditions, all because they are not autistic, all because my son is a straight A student and is on the honor roll. He gets punished and is not allowed to be at the school because now the doctors and his pulmonologist are not allowed to give him a note stating that he cannot wear a mask on his face because he cannot breathe. I have tried to put a mask on my child's face. He lasted 10 minutes and needed to take 4 puffs of his inhaler just to be able to breathe right. And you people think it's okay. So it's okay for my child to have to leave the school that he has been in since kindergarten and have to go to cyber school. Are you guys going to pay me to teach my son what you guys are supposed to be teaching him? Please answer me that. Are you going to pay me? That's what I would like to know.
Are you going to pay me for the internet that I have to pay for to make sure that I have good internet in that home for my son? Are you going to pay me for the time that I'm not going to be able to be out there working to pay my bills and pay my rent because I have to sit at home and teach my son how to do schoolwork? This is a bunch of bull crap in my eyes, and excuse me when I say that. But these are our children. If parents feel comfortable putting a mask on their child's face, by all means, that is their decision. But why is our decision as parents, as mothers, as fathers, as grandparents to these kids, especially with medical conditions, to not put a mask on their face, to not involve them in getting more lung problems than what they already have? These masks do nothing but make these kids sicker. You're going to diminish their immune system. That's the reason why everybody keeps getting sick from COVID. I don't care about a variant. I don't care about a Delta variant. I don't care about any of that. Do your research. Understand the fact of the matter is you keep putting these masks on our children for what? When you go into McDonald's, and I went there today actually because I do drive for Uber Eats. Okay, every restaurant that I've walked in today, how is it that nobody had a mask on their face? These are the same people that's making everybody's food in this town. Don't have a mask on their face and it's okay, but our children have the mask to get an education. The last time I knew, this is not.
Thank you.
Oh, I can't say no more?
Your time is up, ma'am.
Oh, my time is up? Oh, okay. Have a good day.
I know we're not supposed to ask any questions, but how can a child that was exempt from mask last year is wearing a mask this year? I don't understand it. You know, I had part of my lung removed, and I know how hard it is to breathe with these things on, but I don't understand it.
If the child has a medical issue, that's where a doctor should be stating that, and it's done.
But he was exempt last year. Why isn't he exempt this year? That's my question.
I have to look at that. I have to investigate it. You're asking me to have an answer. I don't have an answer.
To my child's doctor, his pediatrician here in Altoona, but he sees a pulmonologist in Pittsburgh. Okay, I'll be more than happy to answer this for you. The reason that they are not allowed to write notes anymore to exempt any child that has any type of lung problems is due to the CDC. So us as parents and us as the school district that our children go to should be able to overturn this. This is what I'm saying to you people. It is not fair to segregate our kids that have medical problems. And that's all I'm going to say at this point. Get it together. These are our children. They're here for a damn education.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Okay, next is Scott Feaster.
Before school starts.
Good evening, everybody. First off, I want to appreciate everyone for being here. Can you hear me now? All right.
No.
I want to appreciate everyone for being here. For once, I'm on time. It's awesome. Bringing up first off, PA State Constitution. It's code 23.84. It's for a mask exemption. Children need not to be immunized if the parent or guardian object on writing based on the moral ethic conduction similar to religious belief. Does it say school board at there at all? I saw a parent or guardian. Where's your names? Anyone? Yeah. And let's see. I don't know about anyone. I don't grant my rights to anyone. My children are mine. I don't have to go to this school. That's correct. The thing is, when you actually purchase your home, you build yourself around the community that you love. I've been here since '05. I have 2 children. There's no reason why I don't want them in school, but today I chose to hold them back and not let them go because kids are being suspended because they didn't want to wear a mask. How is that? You want to suspend us and make us, they even said you're not supposed to be pulling our kids and making them bullied and so forth, but here we are. The mask, what does it do? Absolutely nothing. I mean, I've said this how many times, but yet, I mean, I don't really care. You can call me whatever you want. The people that want to wear a mask, guess what? I respect them and they can as well. It's their choice. And as parents, we have that. Daryl, PA State Representative Derek Metcalf. He says straight out, go to the Article 1 of the Constitution in PA, Section 27. We the people have right of clean air. Now, I'm about done, but I'm just saying, are we going to wear cards that say we have like tuberculosis, cancer, all types of stuff? Or are we just going to claim that, you know, this is the start? Because all I see is you taking rights away and reaching a grasp that you shouldn't have. You are not a parent.
Janelle Yurdy.
All right, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
A little closer to the mic, please.
Can you hear me? Okay. I appreciate the time to speak to the school board this evening. My name is Janelle Yurdy, and my husband and I are current residents of Altoona School District, as well as parents of 2 children enrolled at AASD. I have a degree in chemical engineering, and I'm a director of an advanced analytics team that uses machine learning and data analytics to assist in enhanced decision-making for our nation's military. I am a firm believer in utilizing data to support decision-making and urge the board and directors to use the data points that are publicly available, including the weekly report from the American Academy of Pediatrics, where the hospitalization rates among children aged 0 to 19 are below 1% of all confirmed cases. Tonight, I am asking the school board to remove the requirement in recent AASD policy for a doctor's note as an exemption to the mask mandate instituted by the order of the acting secretary of the PA Department of Health directing face coverings in school entities, which did not require a doctor's note for exemption. Further, the exemption approval process should only require a note from the student's parent or guardian. The school district, principals, and teachers should not question any notes provided. After being enrolled in Altoona when the March 2020 shutdowns occurred, my husband and I chose to keep our children home as there were several unknowns at the time. We completed a year of homeschooling for our school-age child. I believe in the value of public education, and we enrolled our children back into Altoona this year. 2 weeks ago, we watched this meeting where the board members voted for masks to be optional, keeping the choice to wear masks with the parents. 4 days ago, I received an email detailing a new policy that did not include any communication for how to file an exemption. Over the long weekend, we received guidance on how to file an exemption with reasons including respiratory issues that impede breathing. My children have been diagnosed with respiratory issues and are sent to school currently equipped with medication and medical equipment to help them through any issues they might have at school or emergency situations which have occurred. This is prescribed by their doctor. Before the start of the school year, we scheduled appointments to ensure we had a plan for re-enrollment into public school. During the visit, the doctor warned us that croup and RSV were very prevalent, which are both respiratory illnesses that can affect all children, but especially those with asthma. Our doctor did not warn us about COVID-19. Our doctor made no mention to encourage our children to wear masks in school. He provided a doctor's note so they can get what they need right now. But today I called the same doctor and they cannot provide it. For this same reason, for the CDC guidelines, which are the guidelines that this board chose to not abide by 2 weeks ago, because you understand that it is with the parent choice. It is my responsibility as a parent to ensure their health and safety, and you took this decision out of my hands. The policy that the school district provided reverses the board's decision 2 weeks earlier and removes the ability of the parent or guardian to best advocate for their children. Board members, I am urging you to do two things: remove the requirement for a doctor's note on the exemption form and install a policy that requires a parent note with no questions asked with regards to exemption approval, such that all exemption requests received at the school are approved. The state currently puts the ability to care for a child in the hands of a parent or guardian. Let's put that faith back with these parents and guardians to allow them to work for their children to make decisions regarding their health. Thank you for your time.
Cappy Mann.
Can everyone hear me? First, I'd like to bring up some points that have just been my personal observation in the past months. If you enforce a mask mandate, will it really make a difference? If anyone in this room has raised a child, you probably already know why a mask mandate won't work, but I'm going to give some examples. Most kids don't wear masks outside of school, nor do their parents. Kids share and wear each other's masks all the time. Kids eat and drink after each other constantly. They wear dirty masks. They wear the same dirty disposable for days on end, and they never launder a cloth one. They put them on the ground, stuff them in their backpack, purse, pocket, throw them on the floor of their car, and they don't hesitate to rewear them. They don't wash their hands between handling them or even use hand sanitizer. Kids and even adults don't wear masks properly, and most don't fit correctly. Simply stated, masks do not work to prevent the spread of COVID or any virus for that matter. So honestly, I don't know what you think you're preventing. With that said, common sense tells us that if COVID's going to spread, it will be because of these reasons, among others, but not sure where common sense has gone in this day and age. It seems to be lacking in our government, our school districts, and in everyday life. On September 2nd, I received a phone call from the Altoona school nurse. She wanted to confirm that my child had been fully vaccinated. Upon my confirmation, she proceeded to tell me that she had been in contact with a child who tested positive for COVID-19. The contact was a week prior, okay? She also proceeded to tell me she did not have to quarantine because she was fully vaccinated. Funny thing, I received an email from the district yesterday regarding what fully vaccinated meant. 2 weeks from the date of the second Pfizer dose, which is what my daughter received. Needless to say, according to the email, my daughter would not be considered fully vaccinated until this coming Saturday. And notably, even fully vaccinated, she can still contract it and spread the virus. It made zero sense to me, but okay. My daughter decided to get the vaccine so that she didn't have to wear a mask. President Biden in a press conference stated, and I quote, "If you've been fully vaccinated, you no longer need to wear a mask," which prompted her decision to vaccinate. Now, after being fully vaccinated, a vaccine she truly didn't really want to get, you're going to tell her she has to wear a mask? But Mom, the president just said. Sorry, babe. She was diagnosed with chronic migraine headaches and prescribed medication by her doctor a while back. After working with her pediatrician to figure out her triggers, she was migraine-free for months. That is, until the required masking started in the first days and weeks of going back to in-person learning last school year. She started having frequent migraines again after prolonged mask wearing during the school day. One so severe that I had to take her to the emergency room. She was there most of the night into the early morning hours, receiving medication by IV drip. It causes her to miss days of school that she wouldn't normally miss. I actually initiated a conversation with the school nurse to inform her of these headaches so that everybody was aware, and she wasn't sent home saying it was a COVID symptom. Miraculously, when virtual learning resumed, the migraines ceased because she wasn't wearing a mask constantly at home. So yes, masks are affecting our children's health and education, and not in a good way. If masking works, please tell me why my child was in a virtual learning mode for the vast majority of last school year. For the past 18+ months, they have been doing the exact same thing over and over and somehow expecting different results. I'm not sure where the mentality comes from. This virus, like the flu virus, is never going away. No one here, I'm sure, ever suggested our children wearing masks during a flu season. Are we just going to mask our children forever? When does the madness stop? It should stop right here and now, tonight. Many school boards and districts across the state have put out a release for parents to opt out of masking with no doctor's signature. The order put out by our great state, nowhere, and I repeat, nowhere, does it state in the order that exemptions must have a doctor's signature. So why would you as a school district go the extra step and require one? I urge you to do the same as other districts and let medical decisions remain where they should be, in the hands of parents. Show us that it's actually about the health, well-being, and education of our kids.
Thank you.
Would we be able to state our reason for requiring a doctor's note? Liz?
Yes, we can do that. Does the board want to do that now or at the conclusion of?
I'd rather do it now so we understand, everyone understands.
Okay.
When is the hearing? 16th.
Do you want to make that suggestion?
It's 5 school days. So it would be 10
Yeah,
school days.
they want to give you the accurate dates on what they're getting ready to state. Please give them a second.
Should I use school days?
So do you want?
So what we're asking is we would like our solicitor to let you know the reasoning behind requiring a doctor's note for exemption from the masking rule.
Okay. It is true that the governor's order does not make any mention of the process required for seeking medical exemption. However, the governor's order is not the only law that applies to such a request. Such a request is in fact an immediate trigger of the school district's obligations under Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act and the Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act, or IDEA, which is the statute governing those students with IEPs within the school district. School entities have been advised by the Pennsylvania Department of Education that they should follow their established processes for determining student eligibility under those laws for an accommodation. The district's current standard practices are to require a doctor's note, as they did last year, to verify that the student has the condition that they say they have, which is why the school district proceeded to implement a requirement that requires a doctor's note. It's in accordance with those obligations, not just the mandate, which is completely silent in regard to them. School district is giving, and the board is giving consideration to the concerns expressed with regard to accessing doctors and the amount of time necessary to get documentation, and is, I believe, going to announce an extension of time this evening for the amount of time it's going to discuss and debate and make a decision on extending the amount of time available to pursue a doctor's note. I think it is.
Excuse
Okay.
me.
Okay, we're going to move on to the next person. Rachel Schraff.
Can you hear me? I'm a registered nurse by profession. I practiced for 14 years. My 4 kids go to these schools. It is not your choice what my child gets to do. I believe in medical freedom. I'm the parent. It is my decision if my child should mask. It should be every parent's decision. Roe versus Wade was about a reproductive issue with women and their decision for their body. Why are our children not getting to make the same decision? Why are you taking that away from them? 540 kids from the age of 0 to 17 have died from COVID. 2,400 kids die a year from car accidents, and nobody's saying they don't get to drive. 1,000 kids a year die from drowning, and nobody's closing down pools. A year ago, we didn't know what COVID was. Yes, maybe masks was a good idea. Here we are 18 months into it, they don't work. The vaccine doesn't work. That was supposed to be the answer, and it's not working. So why are we going to keep doing this? Do you plan on masking our kids indefinitely? Is that what you plan on doing? Masking our kids indefinitely? You are not their parent. It is not your choice. Humans crave basic interaction. Whenever you guys segregate them like those kids, when you separate them out, you're causing depression issues, you're causing suicide rate. Teen suicide is up 22%. And nobody cares. All you want is some mask on somebody so you feel better, even though it makes no difference. You guys have to stand up for our children. That is what you were voted for. That is what we're asking you to do. We're not asking you to be their parent. We're asking for you to make educational decisions, and we're asking you to let parental decisions up to parents. If you mandate this mask order, it's either you're blinded by fear, you're uneducated, or you lack the backbone to stand up.
Next is Nicole Beschler.
All right, can you hear me? Can you hear me okay? All right, this is from Children's Health Defense, notice for employees, universities, and other institutions mandating COVID-19 masks. This serves as a notice that mandates for any individual to wear a mask against COVID-19 for employment or attendance at a university or other educational institution violates federal law. All COVID-19 masks, whether surgical, N95, or other respirators, are authorized, not approved or licensed by the federal government. This is an emergency use authorization only. That means it merely may be effective. Federal law states, and thank you to the Nuremberg Code, that when an EUA product is an experimental product, by definition, we have the right to refuse that product, period. The right to refuse. I am an LPN. I have been licensed in the state of Pennsylvania for many, many years. I've been homeschooling my children for the last several years. My son is now in Altoona in 9th grade. And there is a medical procedure for masking and taking off your mask. You have to wash your hands before you put the mask on. You touch the mask by the ear loops only. You tighten the nasal passage up here. That's it. You do not touch your mask. I've seen every single one of you touch your mask several times. You are contaminating your mask. And then after you take your mask off, you have to wash your hands before you take your mask off. As soon as you touch it, it's contaminated. It has to be removed. You have to wash your hands. You have to take the mask off with your ear loops, and then you have to wash your hands again. And then if you're going to put another one on, you have to do the same procedure every single time. Are we expecting children to do that all day long? Do you have the time or the energy to watch children to make sure that they're not touching their mask and it's not contaminated? I don't think so. Side effects of wearing a mask are hyperproxemia, hypercapnia, shortness of breath, inflammation, headaches, fatigue, self-contamination, increased muscle tension, immunosuppression, stress, chronic stress, mood disturbances, insomnia, compromised cognitive performance. What are they here to do? Learn. Performance. Anxiety, depression, hypertension. Our children are the most susceptible for chronic stress. The most susceptible. Of all the population, they are the most susceptible to chronic stress. Chronic stress disrupts the hormones and the normal development and functioning of the brain, the neuroendocrine system, the immune and metabolic and cardiovascular and respiratory systems. What are we trying to protect here? Immune system and the respiratory tract, correct? Also, are they going to wear goggles also and full body suits? You can get it through your skin, you can get it through your eyes, you can get it through your ears. Where are your studies? Where are your studies mandating this, that it's safe to wear a mask 8 hours a day? Where are your studies? I want studies. The CDC has proved that children 0 to 19 have a 99.997% survival rate. 99.997. My child is more likely to get hit by a car and die walking to school than he is to die of COVID-19. This is parent choice. Parent choice. And also, I would like to know how much you are getting for our child to comply with these orders.
Here for last question.
I am not answering.
$38 million so far for the COVID incident, a little over $5,000 per kid.
No, okay, we're gonna move on. Kevin Kimball, please.
Hi, my name's Kevin Kimball. I'm retired military medical. I have 4 daughters going to this school.
A little closer, Mr. Kimball.
Hi, my name is Kevin Kimball. I'm retired military medical. I have 4 children going to this school. Last time I gave a talk like this, I had tons of comments on my page about me not caring about the vulnerable. So let me begin this answer with, this is my heart monitor. I have type 1 diabetes. I'm overweight. I'm pushing 50. I have respiratory problems from my time in the military, along with a whole other slew of medical because of that time. So that's my answer about the vulnerable. If you guys look at the packets that they were nice enough to place in front of you for me, I'm going to go through these fast. You have the information. I'm just going to touch upon it because of our timeline. The first section that you have, those 4 pages, is from the Israeli emergency group that was put together immediately when COVID became available. Under the discussion, through their research in the last year and a half, they've found that the children have no long-term effects from COVID-19. They risk more side effects from a vaccine than they do from COVID. The next section you're going to see is from the same country. Before anybody says this anti-vaxxer research, the government of Israel is the most masked, most vaccinated by percentage of population in the world. The next section you'll see is the results of that so far. In July alone, between 70-some% and 93% of all cases of COVID in their hospitals are vaxxed. Next section goes for a different angle. You guys are looking at the chart at multiple different countries from Europe that are dealing with this. If you follow the last track down on Sweden, you'll find out they're the only country in the world so far that has gotten ahead of this. They didn't do it with masks. They didn't do it with lockdowns. They didn't do it with vaccines. They did it with natural herd immunity immediately. The next page you guys will see is the bar charts dealing with cases and deaths of COVID since it's begun here in Pennsylvania. If you notice the first category, 4 children in the last year and a half have died from it. They can't release because of HIPAA what the individual cases were, but it has been noted that all 4 cases had pre-existing severe conditions. If you also look though at the age groups that you guys are dealing with in school, the first 3 bars in the next graph down, meaning 4 times the cases of any other category of kids have had COVID, with only 4 of them dying. That brings us to the part of the next page. Shows the normal rate of child deaths and the normal rate of flu per year. And if you notice the spikes go up and down, just because it was spiked in 2020 isn't necessarily because of COVID. Because if you check on the CDC websites, their numbers that they list aren't just COVID-19. They are flu and pneumonia as well. The next section, you guys will see the top. The article is entitled CDC Mask Mandate Made No Statistical Difference. This particular article is covering just here in the United States between schools that went optional last school year and schools that mandated masks. Statistically, there was no difference in cases and deaths in those schools for last year. There's even a bigger picture if you look at the difference between Europe and America. While more of American schools were masked, most European schools did not mask at all last year, and there's still no statistical difference between the results. The next 2, the small cover page, and then the full article following it. If you look at the small highlighted section that I put on the single page, it explains why natural immunity beats what the vaccine is getting. And the group that has the best chance of surviving COVID is the 0 to 19-year-olds. By masking them, you're not allowing their immune systems to get exposed. You all are old enough to remember back, how did we beat measles in communities? We didn't hide our children. We put them out there so that while they were young, while they were strong, they could get it, they could have immunity to it, and they wouldn't suffer the effects as an adult. The last section, guys, is the case line of deaths across the United States from COVID-19. Take a good look at those numbers put out by the CDC for you all. Now realize that less than 20% of those are COVID deaths. The rest of them are flu and pneumonia from the normal seasonal bouts, which is why the spikes happen at normal flu and pneumonia season points.
Thank you.
I have one last comment for the parents.
Time, sir. Time, sir.
You want to remove your kids. If they enforce the mandate, do not leave your money with the school district. The CCC is a free option.
Okay.
It takes the money out of their pocketbook, and it's 100 times better than the digital option they offer here.
Okay, we have to move on. The next person to speak is Amy Boo.
Hello. Just wanted to let you know that you on the school board have decided our children should wear masks all day, every day, like they are some source of disease spreaders, but they are not. You as a school board has a choice to make this as an optional choice that we can have, just like all the other schools around our area has that option. I heard that today. There is an option. Section 3 states if wearing a face mask would cause a medical condition or worsen one. Well, let me tell you that masks do cause harm to our children, which has been proven by testing, which includes increased bacterial viral infections, lack of oxygen, increased CO2, dizziness, headaches, passing out, shortness of breath, anxiety, brain damage of our younger children. Let me tell you, that same anxiety feeling of returning back to school with having to wear a mask happened in my home last night. My child last night clinging on to me, begging me not to send her back to school because masks and shields make her feel like she can't breathe. She gets dizzy and experiences headaches. This crossed both of my children's minds all week. I should never have to hear my children telling me how they are in fear that they won't be able to breathe from a cloth on their face, or how it make them feel ill or worried that if they don't comply, will they get in trouble or singled out and be placed in a room by themselves that you did today? You did today. Yes, I do not want my child to fear school or fear of having lack of oxygen. I repeat, I do not want my child fearing that. Section 4 states it is illegal to remove or restrain our children from their education. Both of my children are straight A students and has been on the honor roll many a times. Never gave staff members or teachers any problems. I believe they deserve to have the best education possible with their peers with fresh, clean air that God has given us. COVID is not going away, just like the flu. Just like another parent stated, are you indefinitely making masks forever? Because I know everybody in this stadium does not want that. I know a lot of these parents don't. I don't. Masks should be optional, just like the beginning of the year. Why is it changed? The thought of thinking that my child is being forced into wearing a mask to get a public education here is sickening. The next thought comes to many parents' minds is, will my children have to be forced to take a vaccine to continue their public education? Because the next conclusion will be that the masks are no longer working or not enough. So the next steps is what? Mandating vaccines, which we do not agree. I don't agree. We as parents shouldn't have to negotiate with anyone on what to do with our children. Let me repeat, our children. Our children. We, the parents, do not co-parent with any of you guys on the board. None. Without us, you guys will not exist. We pay you guys. That's what you guys are here to teach our children. Not to give medical decisions. None. No, and some parents are thinking that they have to do this for their children for education, even if they make them feel uncomfortable. Think how damaging that process is. Think about how wrong it is that they have to question in their heads that if they don't do this, what is happening to their child's education? That is not the way a mother or a parent has to think. If you're not comfortable on what is being done to your child, then don't let it happen. We know that masking makes no sense. It makes no sense. It's called our mama bear instincts. Yes, we know that children are the dirtiest. I'm sorry, children are dirty. Little people in this world, they stick their fingers up their nose, touch their face, leftover snacks stashed all over their lips and fingers and just slobber everywhere. But yet, they're gonna put their cloth back on their mask after they dropped it or sucked on it. Have you wondered about the health effects of forcing kids to breathe in their own sweat, spit, dirt, soaked rags every single day?
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm done.
Time.
I'm done.
You're done. Your time is over. Your time is up.
Please, we have to limit it to 5 minutes so that everybody gets a chance to speak. I'm sorry we took so long. The next speaker is Curtis Bopp.
All right, good evening.
We are not uncomfortable. We want to hear what you have to say, but we have to limit it to 5 minutes so everyone gets the opportunity to speak, sir. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I think it's actually really nice that there's this many people that care this much about what's going on in the school. A lot of people probably said a lot of what I was going to say tonight. And, what I was looking at is this has largely become a political issue, kind of unnecessarily. It's kind of sadly that it has gone that way. But, the people of Pennsylvania voted this spring to limit the governor's powers. So what does he do? He goes and finds another way to do it. He achieves what he can't through the legislative process, through executive orders, through, another source. Our children are being caught in the crosshairs of this. It's not fair to them that they have to come and wear a mask all day in school when really everybody at work anymore, no one's really wearing these anymore. It's been proven that they don't really do a whole lot, but it just makes everybody kind of feel better maybe, but it's really not doing anything. In February of 2020, Dr. Fauci said in an email that the masks you buy in a drugstore do very little. The virus is much smaller than they can block, and he didn't recommend wearing one. A month and a half later, he said we ought to wear them. What changed in that amount of time? I mean, it's possible that we really don't know what changed, but it's possible that he thought the mask would make it look like you were doing something, or, make people feel more comfortable in public with this mystery virus going around. Well, if you really look at it, that's where I was at. He's a human being. So, he's just looking for something to, give us some ideas of what you can do. So we really don't know, what his thinking was coming up with this stuff. One downside of these masks that I haven't heard mentioned was the fact that people might, maybe feel a little run down, or maybe they have an unexplained headache and they think, well, I shouldn't go in today, but I got something big going on. I'm going to go to school, or, come in. They think, I got my mask. That's going to protect me. We're creating a false sense of security with these masks. How many people I assure you this is happening. People are showing up sick with, issues thinking, well, my mask is blocking everything. Well, it's not. Everybody says, trust the science, listen to the experts. But if 2020 taught us anything, there are no experts. They don't know what they're doing. I attempted online to find some studies to prove that, what they say, trust the science, listen to science. So I did, about an hour of Google research. They released a study from Duke University, June 30th of this year, concluding all students need to wear a mask. Now, they studied a bunch of schools in North Carolina, and they only studied schools that wore masks. They didn't actually study a single school that didn't wear a mask. So they call that science, but they didn't have a control group. So I don't really know how they made that conclusion. CDC published a study May 28th of this year. They studied 90,000 students in Georgia. And they concluded masking is not significantly significant. They're statistically significant. So not being statistically significant, yet they're going to recommend them. One actually kind of positive thing from that same study said that just simple ventilation reduced the spread by 39%. When you add HEPA filtration or ultraviolet filtration, you actually reduce it by 48%. We're not talking about any of these mitigation techniques. We're talking about, slapping a mask on our kids' faces. While we sit here and debate this, Europe's not debating it. Much of Europe, UK, most of the Scandinavian countries, Italy, they're not masking most of their kids. They've had about the same outcome. There's really no science behind putting these on our kids. Children are statistically the safest subset of our population. Much of the fear being spread with overcrowding hospitals and kids being at catastrophic risk is really misplaced. Your child's far more likely to be killed in a car accident on the way to or from school. Life has inherent risks. We learn to live with them. You can't mitigate every single risk that is happening in life. If there was a study that proved that the masks were effective, it would be everywhere. The fact that they're not pointing to anything tells you they have nothing. For this last year, we've been trusting scientists rather than science. Humans are fallible. subject to groupthink. They're subject to, they want to get a grant. They want to, you know, remain popular. So we say things that, you know, aren't necessarily, you know, backed up in their scientific findings. We're a nation of laws, not men. Our government and elected leaders serve at the consent of the governed, and most of us right now, it doesn't look like consent. I respectfully ask this board votes to allow parental opt-out of this mandate. We, the parents, should decide what's best for our kids.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Tracy Stoltz.
Hi, Tracy Stoltz. I don't get it. What changed from like August 25th until now, like that you decided to go with these forced mandates? Does it have something to do with the federal funding and you have to comply with the CDC in order to get the ESSER grant, you know, like for whatever? I mean, what changed from then to now? Our kids have a right to clean air. Forcing children to wear a mask over their nose and mouth every day, all day, does not allow access to clean air that he or she has a God-given right to breathe. The Pennsylvania Constitution, Article 1, Section 27, says that we, the people, meaning our kids, are entitled to clean air, not germy, bacteria, mask, clean air, clean environment. How could you allow our children all day, every day to wear a mask by complying with the CDC, the Department of Health, all for the name of what? Money, the grants, the federal funding, the $38 million, the 5,000 and something per student? Now our children suffer because of you. Mask and facial coverings do not work. They don't prevent transmission, by the way. Yeah, they don't. My sister had COVID. She wore 3 masks every day. I know a lot of people that got COVID that wears masks. Masks don't do nothing. You still can get the virus. The people have a right to clean air. And another thing, can someone give me an explanation of how students sitting at a desk differs from an adult sitting at a restaurant? I mean, maybe we could take some money from those grants and like put restaurant tables in the classrooms. That way, when the kids sit down, they can take off their mask, right? Right? Where's the science that says that the school seating at the desk is at a different level than sitting at a restaurant table? So how about we look into, with that money, the federal money, getting restaurant tables put into the classrooms so the students can remove their mask and breathe. I just have one other. Also, I have there's like 48 studies of various mask studies that were done to prove the effectiveness of the mask. I have it here if anybody's interested in it. 48 studies. Your kids aren't lying, the symptoms are real. That's 48 studies to prove it. It's child abuse. It's child abuse. Masking our children is child abuse. Where's the science of the mask in the settings of our school children and the workers inside the schools? Where's the efficacy of the studies? That would be helpful. Masks harm children's health, mentally, socially, and physically. Masks are nothing more but political science. And of course, the definition of child abuse as listed in the Pennsylvania Child Protective Services law is, in a B1 section of that, is the term child abuse shall mean intentionally, knowingly doing any of the following: interfering with the breathing of our children. When is enough enough? What, keep accepting the money? When's the money run out? I mean, the federal grant money. Is that how long our children must comply and wear these masks? It is. It is all about the money.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Kelly Ferguson, please.
This is a first for me. This is my first board meeting. This is the first time I'm talking up here. I have 2 kids in the school district, one in 1st grade and one in 11th grade. And I'm not going to repeat a lot of what was already said. But what I do know is that there are 5 members up there that I believe know what the right choice is. I believe that you know what you need to do today. Our kids, we love our kids more than any of you sitting up there. So why would you ever think we wouldn't make the best decision for them? Of course, we want the best for our children. We love our children. We are not trying to put them in harm's way. But there is study after study, like they've talked about, that shows masks do not work. If they worked last year, I don't think so many kids would have been sent home to be quarantined, but they were. They still were, okay? And let me tell you, you need to let us opt out without the doctor's excuse. There's no doctor in this area that I've talked to that is willing to give an excuse for us. They're scared, they're living in fear, whatever it is. There is no doctor. It's going to be very hard for us to find a doctor that's going to give us the out. We, as the parents, should be able to make that choice for our child. And honestly, I don't trust the doctors, and let me tell you why. I am a diabetic. And a year and a half ago, I went to see a dietitian who told me, this is what you need to eat to control your diabetes. And I said, I had learned that that was not what I needed to be eating to control my diabetes. But she wanted to keep me on medicine the rest of my life. I need to be an advocate for myself and know what the right choices are and to look into things. And I'm doing that for my children too. Be an advocate for yourself and for your children, because the doctors only want to keep you on medicine and only want to get their money. Okay? Be an advocate. Stand up. This is the time that you 5 people, you know who you are, need to stand up for our children and make the right choice. Okay? We need then to also be united. I sat here and listened. You guys put up with a lot. You do. You put up with a lot tonight. And I feel bad for that. Okay? We need to come together united with one voice and not be hateful and unkind. You, Mr. in the middle, Parental, whatever your name is, when you came out here, The way you talked to the people was so disrespectful. Hoover, the way that you talk to Mrs. Bream is so disrespectful. And these are the people that we expect to make the choices for our kids. I want you to know, Mrs. Bream, I love you. You are amazing. You do what is right for the kids. And I'm asking the rest of you, do not think about money. Do not think about anything that they want to try to pull away from you. It is more about money. It is about our children and what is best for them. My child last year was sent home because he had a runny nose and was sneezing and had to quarantine for 10 days with no other sign. And he never, ever had any other sign. So this year I sent in a note to say, my son has allergies. We went to the doctor to actually get a note to state that my son has allergies so that hopefully he's not sent home again for 10 days because, oh my goodness, he sneezed. And do you think I like my son sneezing 7 times, 8 times, 10 times into that mask that he's wearing all day? It's disgusting. Okay? It's disgusting. And I implore you 5 to do what is right tonight. I implore it, and I hope that you do. I hope that you do. I hope that you do. We need you. We desperately need you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Cheryl McGanahan. I may have pronounced that wrong.
Good evening. My name is Cheryl McGacken. I am a mother of 2 that attend the Altoona School District. I am here to voice my opposition to the mask mandate. Time after time, over the course of the past 8 months dealing with COVID-19, we have been reminded not to let the cure be worse than the disease. It is my firm belief that by masking our children for 6 to 8 hours a day is doing just that. By being forced to wear a mask, our children are being conditioned to fear each other, fear illness, fear viruses that in this case have a greater than 99% survival rate, and even fear the air they breathe. This is emotional and psychologically abuse. They are also deprived of non-verbal language and emotional development. Beyond their emotional well-being, their physical health is at risk of increased likelihood of lack of oxygen, pneumonia, anxiety, dizziness, headache, and many other infectious disease unrelated to COVID-19. There is no proof that masks prevent the spread of COVID-19. So why are we doing this? A letter from the school district explains the Altoona School District's failure to comply with the order from the Department of Health may cause liability for individuals or district, and further may jeopardize the district's insurance coverage. So let's call this for what it is. It's tyranny and abuse. Instead of challenging the order, as some of the other school districts have decided to do, Altoona School District's board has chosen money and avoiding liability over the welfare of our children. I disagree with the mask mandate, and I am disappointed in the Altoona Area School District and its board for not challenging the order from the Department of Health. Thank you.
Thank you.
Crystal Oaks.
Can I ask a question to the solicitor without it taking up my time?
You're on the clock right now.
Okay, well, the code that you stated in regards to the district asking for a doctor's note, can you clarify exactly what that code was used for previously before COVID?
The code section 504 in the IDEA, is
Yes,
that
ma'am.
what you mean?
Yes, ma'am.
When parents present medical conditions to the school district, they utilize a process to evaluate how those conditions should be accommodated within the school district. The guidance received from the Department of Education was to follow the school district's customary and typical processes for evaluating those types of requests for accommodation, including any requirements for medical documentation. And that my understanding is that that was the school district's typical process in the absence of having available district personnel to make that decision themselves.
Okay, but that was prior to COVID.
That has been in place throughout the course
Correct.
of COVID and prior to COVID.
Correct.
These are federal laws that aren't dependent upon COVID. They
Right,
aren't
so
new.
that code had nothing to do in regards to how COVID is handled.
It is in regards to any form of accommodation sought on the basis of a medical need or a disability.
Okay, a medical need or disability, not something such as the flu or anything like that. If my child would come in with a runny nose or sneezing or coughing, like you're not required to give them Benadryl because they're having allergy issues per that code.
You would not be required to.
Not me, the district.
The district
Because
would
my
not be
child, I
required.
have to take care of.
I believe that's probably correct in some cases. Those statutes address
So now my next
situations
question to
when an
you is-
accommodation is requested.
My next question is, your company that you work for, your law office also represents the other districts in this area that are offering the exemptions without the doctor's signature.
We represent a large number of school districts. We provide universal advice. We have not varied in our recommendations that we have issued to our various
I
school
didn't
district
ask what your
clients.
recommendation was. I asked if you were providing your services to the other districts in this area that are offering the exemptions without a doctor's excuse.
Yes, we have I can't confirm or deny who's requiring a doctor's excuse. I can confirm that we've provided advice to many of the school districts in this local area. We represent almost all of them in the local county.
Okay. So here's what that was all I had to say in the mess. My issue with the board and some of the board members, and I won't address them directly because apparently their feelings get hurt. But some of you stated you cared so deeply about the students in this district that you're just fighting to keep them safe. Some board members stated that they would be so beside themselves if a student would get COVID and pass away. What about Devin Taylor? What about Caden Beck? What about Wyatt Landsberg? Where were you so concerned and worried about when they needed your help? These students are experiencing anxiety, depression, and a long list of mental health issues, along with regular health issues. The headaches my children have experienced. Where are my kids' masks at? Right here. Guess where they are when they walked out of the school? There's a line of them out front of the junior high when I picked up my daughter from volleyball. They don't care. So as I said, it is very clear that your history, you do not care about the students' mental and physical well-beings. All you care about is what happens when COVID hits. Care about what you're supposed to care about, their education. Your sole purpose as a district is to care about their education. I can't even say a part of your purpose is to care about their safety, because as other people have stated, the number of fights in a single day in this district, it's obvious you guys have no control. Unless it pertains to my child's education, your staff, any of you do not have a right to tell me or my children what is in their best interest in regards to health and safety. That is my choice, my child. When you sit and listen to them cry because they have to come to school with a mask on, or because they're scared, they don't know what's gonna happen when they go to school, if somebody's gonna fight with somebody else, then you can tell me
Thank you.
We have two students, Jade and Adelia. Okay.
So I can take up their time too?
No.
Are they here?
Where are they?
Their parent, and I sent them home as a responsible parent that they got ready for bed to come to school tomorrow because I'm their parent, not any of you, me.
Thank you.
Okay. We have to move on. It would have to be your children that were here.
But again, as I said, I'm them. I speak for them. I
am-
was going to allow them the opportunity to speak to you all, but because you took 40 minutes in a room to have an executive meeting, but you had all the time over the weekend to go ahead and send a letter out to us, multiple letters, where you could have held your executive meeting.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, we have to move on. I'm sorry.
But again, as I said, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but y'all know who you are. And the other ones who stood up for us last board meeting, I hope and pray that you overturn all these tyranny people that think that they can control us.
Mandy Horton. Mandy Horton, is she here?
I'll make this quick because a lot of everybody covered everything. But shouldn't it be a requirement to wear, like not wear a medical device or wear medical device as opposed to the opposite? Like, I don't understand what gives you guys the right to think that. And I know some of you are with us and some of you, as she said, are against us. But I don't think that there's any grounds for you to decide what is good, is in the best interest of our children. I mean, it goes back to the child abuse, basically. When someone, whether through action or failing to act, causes injury, death, emotional harm, or risk or serious harm to a child, you see it every day. Do you not? Do you not see the tears and the segregation and all of this that this is causing, with suicide rates being up 22% in children? We know that this age range is not of any risk. So why is it only students? Why is it only our schools? I don't understand that. But as a parent, if you had a report on me that somebody called and said that I don't know, let's say I made my kids, what's that? Yeah, or let's say I forced my child to wear floaties in the bathtub or in the shower because I was terrified. My fear of them drowning, not them, my fear. You'd probably say I was nuts, right? You'd probably call me crazy. Yeah, okay. What if before 2020, I had a fear of my child dying from the flu or pneumonia? I made them mask up and wear gloves and sanitize from head to toe and pulled them from school. Like before last year, I would have been nuts, right? Okay. What if I told you that I, as a parent, never, ever, ever let my child out of my sight because I was so terrified that they were going to commit suicide or self-harm? That would be nuts, right? I'd probably get CYS called on me. My kids would be taken. My fears being imposed on them would be psychological, emotionally damaging. But statistically, out of all deaths in children 0 to 19, suicide is 1.5. Drowning is 0.5. But what if I told you that I made my child sleep standing up because I was petrified of them suffocating at night? The overall death rate in children 0 to 19 is 0.2, which is the exact measure of suffocation. So if I'm terrified and I'm making my child, is it justifiable for you to tell my kids to cover their face with a bacteria infested mask all day long out of fear of COVID versus me making my child stand sleeping up or sleep standing up because I'm fear they're suffocating when they're exactly the same measure. I would be a nut, right? I would be crazy. Like there's no way that this is justifiable. I personally have not worn a mask from the beginning of this thing. Not at all. Not at all. We've been up and down the East Coast. We've been to New York. We travel. We have not stopped our lives at all. Yet out of the 100+ people I do know that are paranoid to death and wear masks have caught COVID. I've never once caught COVID. I will not get vaccinated because that's just why. They're the highest cases in the hospitals right now. But either way, I don't understand why this mask-driven insanity to protect our children. It is not up to you to protect our children. It is up to us. And for those of you who do support us, I thank you. And I really genuinely hope you continue to do the right thing. And for those of you who don't support us, for whatever reasons that you may have, I genuinely hope you reevaluate your situations and figure out why you got in this career path to begin with. Because if it's not to take our kids' best interest at heart, then we don't need you here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ashley Gallo.
Ashley Gallo.
I wasn't planning on speaking this evening. My husband is washing at home and probably very surprised right now because everybody's pretty much mentioned everything I wanted to discuss. But you guys threw some things at us that I wasn't prepared with. You make it sound so simple. Oh yeah, go out there and get the doctor's excuse for your son that has asthma and your child that's in elementary school with the 502 or 4 code right now, but it's already established. You've already been receiving extra money for her for several years because she needs the extra. But now you're telling me that I have to go and get a doctor's form to say she needs that mask taken off her face. It sounds simple, I agree. I thought it was this morning. But have either of you have any students that you've had to call the doctors and personally try to get that excuse for? Because it's not easy. I spent all early afternoon doing that for my children, and I still do not have an excuse to send in with them tomorrow. So my son with asthma, I had to go refill his inhaler an extra time because he's probably going to need it a lot more now. Are you guys going to help cover the fee for that extra inhaler? Because I can't go get an excuse from his doctor that prescribes the inhaler for him because so many parents are wanting this. They don't want to have to pick and choose. The doctors shouldn't have to pick and choose for us parents that whose kids get to take off masks and who don't. That's what you guys are there for, to protect them, not for you to tell us, oh, I need a paper from a doctor. You have it on my son's Skyward account that he has asthma ever since the 3rd grade, and now he's in 9th. 6 years you guys have had it documented that my son has asthma from his doctor, So why are you telling me now today I need a note from his doctor verifying he's got asthma to take this mask off? Because guess what? I've tried my best to get that note for him today and I can't. So could one of you give me an answer to do, what am I supposed to do next? What am I supposed to do next when my son's pediatrician for years is denying me that note? My son has a lot of trouble breathing. What am I supposed to do? I mean, you guys make it sound so easy. It's not easy, guys. I wish I could go get that note from my son and help him breathe better to get his education. He loves coming to school. He wants an education. He makes good grades. He wants to be here. You send him home because he has asthma and can't breathe. What am I supposed to do as a parent? I ask you. You tell me, get a note from the doctor. Doctor's not doing it. So what do I do now? I need answers. Thank you.
Thank you. Marcus Marasco.
Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to speak. I'd like to start out by thanking you all for being here. I understand how stressful and difficult situation you're in. So I just want to thank you all for being up there to be advocates for our kids. So I have a lot of information here that I was going to go through, but everyone pretty much covered the data that's out there that says these masks don't work. I hope you guys have done your research and seen that what they're telling you today is the truth. And I just want to point out one thing from this directive that came from the Department of Health. The very studies they reference to justify the masks do not justify masks. They are studies that evaluate schools that had multiple items in place to prevent the spread of COVID. None of them isolated masks to identify how well masks work to prevent COVID. And not one of them produced a control study to say, okay, this does work better than no mask or no controls at all. So none of this, I mean, this whole report, this whole directive isn't worth the paper it was printed on. If you want to go through and read these yourself, you can. The references are all here. You can read the studies yourself. And some of the information here where it references at the footnote, there's no link provided. So they didn't even provide backup for it. But I came here with the intention of asking you 3 questions. So will you stand with us parents in taking back control of our schools? We elected you to make these decisions, not to leave the education of our kids to people in Harrisburg. This is why we asked you to be here. I know you guys volunteered for this. You didn't volunteer for this situation. You were not put in this situation because of you guys. You were put in this situation because of people in Harrisburg. It's not right. And it's a hard thing to do, but we're asking you to stand up against it. And we will stand with you. So with this in mind, would this board be willing to vote, as it did just a few weeks ago, to leave masking up to the child and their parents? If, for some reason, due to the governor's actions and the Secretary of Health's actions, that you don't feel you can make that decision, is there a way you can give us an out on this that other school districts have, that allow us to sign our own letter to you saying our kid should not be masked? That is what we were asking of you. It is a very hard thing to ask you. I understand the conditions you're in, but this is what you signed up for. And we will have your back if you do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone that signed up this evening to speak that I don't have your name or haven't called on you? Just this gentleman back here and this young lady down here. He raised his hand first. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, there's a couple. We'll start with this gentleman in the back. Could you state your name, sir, and where you're from?
Michael Bersuter, I'm in the Altoona District. I'm gonna make this simple and clear. You're the attorney, correct? All right. You know very well that Supreme Court law passed that statutes and codes not law. It's test.
Yes.
There's another problem. I just went to the men's bathroom back there, the boys' bathroom. How is germ spread? It's just not by mouth. It's also by this. Every faucet back there, you got to touch. How many kids are in this school? We're in the thousands, right? How many boys going into that bathroom? I'm gonna tell you now, I used to be a teenager. I didn't keep myself hygiene very well. Let's be serious. This is just tyranny, period. My uncle's a doctor. He has seen more cases with that on than without. He's flat out told me, I already had the COVID, not once, twice. I'm still standing. Let's be really clear. My daughter went to school today. She refused to wear it. Principal called her in her office, said, you got detention. My daughter tore the paper up right in front of him, said, I'm not wearing it. You do not make the decision of our children. You listen to us. You're up for re-election. And sir, the way you handled yourself earlier, I want your resignation.
Thank you.
Young lady down front here, please.
Can you hear me? My name is Amber Hufford. I'm a homeowner in the city and I have 2 children in the district, one at Altoona High. She's a senior, and one in the junior high, he's 7th grade. My 7th grader has asthma, and like some of my other parents here tonight, I cannot obtain a medical excuse for him at this point. We lost my husband it's been 5 years this year. He passed away tragically in a work accident. And since then, myself, along with my children, have been diagnosed with PTSD, anxiety, and other disorders as well. My youngest son has trouble focusing already as it is. Putting that mask on his face causes him to lose focus even more because he has trouble breathing. He tends to get drowsy during class. My daughter has had to have numerous treatments for strep throat last year for wearing the mask all year. For all the time she was in there, she had to have her tonsils removed. Now I worry because she doesn't have her tonsils there to collect that bacteria, she could get even more sick having to wear this mask. She is afraid to not wear a mask. She feels she has to wear a mask right now because she's running for homecoming. She doesn't want to risk losing anything for going against what she knows right. Because she knows, as well as I know, as well as everybody here knows, that these masks do not protect us. I am a hairstylist by nature, and my job is to physically get in people's personal space. We are required to wear masks. This is the mask I wear. As you can see, I can completely breathe through it. It's mesh, but it suffices what a mask is supposed to be. It looks as if I have one on, but yet I can still breathe and my oxygen is not restricted. If the kids are to wear a mask, I feel that they should not be put into the dress code category if they're going to wear a face covering. Who says that it has to restrict their breathing? Because that technically is child abuse. Now, if you are worried about losing funding or the state pulling your funding, or even down to the extent of kids being punished for something that's not law, is that not coercion? I already know that there are cases against Governor Wolf right now going to court. Do you really want to put yourself in the liability risk of any students in this school getting sick from having to wear a mask? That's all I have.
Thank you. Okay.
And now for something completely different. Hi, my name is Bridget Jackson. My 6-year-old daughter, Lydia, she is in 1st grade at Pleasant Valley Boulevard. So I'm not here to play politics at the expense of our children's health and education. It's unfortunate to hear that so many people that have gathered here today are willing to do just that. We're not here to pretend we are scientists infectious disease experts, or doctors, none of us have the answers. Whether we oppose mask mandates or support them, there is one absolute truth that everyone sitting in this room and everyone watching at home can agree on. Our children and students learn best when they are at school and in person. To put it simply, the current CDC guidelines say, if both the infected student and the exposed student correctly and consistently wear well-fitting masks, exposed students do not have to quarantine. They do not miss out on in-school instruction. Excuse me. To put it simply, if my child is masked, and for this example, we're just gonna assume that all of these kids are unvaccinated because my daughter's in first grade, nobody can be vaccinated. So if my child is masked and yours is unmasked and has an active COVID infection, they will both quarantine. If my child is masked and has an active COVID infection and yours is unmasked, they both quarantine out of school. But if my child is masked and has a COVID infection and your child is also masked, they do not have to quarantine. Is that not what we want? Those gathered here and watching today, excuse me, I'm speaking.
Let her speak, please.
Those gathered here today and watching, especially those who consistently vote against masks, yet insist students need to be in school, don't you want all children to be able to learn in person as much as possible? Why is the freedom of your child to not wear a mask more important than my child or anyone's child freedom to attend school in person? Students should be in school.
Please let her speak, please.
Students should be in school. By adhering to the mask mandate, we can achieve that goal. By not adhering to the mask mandate, we will fail to reach that goal. It's really very simple. Let me preface this by saying, I understand that there are conditions and there are medical issues that 100% people cannot wear masks. I understand that. I respect that. What I want to say though, is if you are seeking out a way to bypass the mandate by obtaining an exemption note from a doctor online, or one who's never seen your child, evaluated or treated your child, shame on you. It's aberrant to pretend that your child has a medical issue to avoid them having to wear a mask. You are setting the precedent with your children that is okay to lie to get what you want.
Okay, let's let her speak, please.
And that rules do not apply to them. Like I mentioned, there are legitimate reasons that people cannot wear masks. I respect that. Obviously I do, because I literally just said it.
Give her the opportunity to speak.
Please let her speak. You know, she's up there. She wants to voice her opinion. Please, I respect you guys so much. Please let her just speak, please.
Are you guys done? Can I continue?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm a bully.
Please continue.
Okay. So not wanting your child to be controlled or be a sheep is not and will not ever be a legitimate reason for them to not wear a mask. You're not a patriot. You're not some kind of maskless freedom fighter. You are willfully ignorant to science and facts. Some of the very things that you are sending your children to school
Please
to
let her
learn.
speak.
I said at the last meeting, and I will repeat it again for those of you who may have not been listening. The trauma you claim children will have from wearing a piece of fabric on their face pales in comparison to the trauma of having to attend the funeral of a sibling, classmate, or friend. The trauma of having to follow the rules is nothing.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, yes, please. Okay, People have differing opinions. Let's respect what they say.
$12.8 million.
What is your name, sir?
Steve Stuckey.
Okay, thank you, Steve.
12.8 million people. That's the population of Pennsylvania. How many died yesterday from COVID? 1,000? 500? 100? 50? 3. 3 people died. That's not a pandemic. It's not even an epidemic. That's barely a blip on the radar screen. America is number 2 in education spending per capita. Yet we're also 13th in literacy, 28th in math, 30th in science. I have spoken to some of your recent graduates. I asked them to name the 7 continents. One of them asked me what one was. They didn't know who Paul Revere was, Thomas Jefferson. I gave them a blank map of the United States. I asked them to fill in the states. 10 states out of 50. That's a 20%. Why would I want you people to make medical decisions? You can't even get them to do addition, subtraction, geography, geometry, none of that. Why would I let that decision be made up to you? Worry about educating the children. Let these people worry about medicating the children.
Thank you. Was there anyone else that did not speak that signed up to speak this evening? Okay, the gentleman in the blue shirt, please. He is, yes. Okay, this gentleman, please.
All you guys were worried about putting my daughter on a bus last week for a seizure that she's been seizure-free 4 years, okay? But this week, you're not worried about her having an asthma attack out of your diaper cloth that's on your face? Are you going to pay her medical bills for the asthma attack? Are you going to pay for a funeral if they happen to die from it? No, because all you care about is the damn money. You ain't worried about anybody else but yourselves. You guys are a disgrace. You don't care about our kids. You don't care about their medical. Guess what? My kids will not be wearing a mask to your school. You kick them out, I don't care. You're all a disgrace. You don't even deserve. That's all I gotta say.
Thank you, sir. I believe there was one more. The lady in the back. 2 more.
This is a first.
Could you state your name, please?
My name's Lori. My daughter's in the 4th grade at Baker.
Okay, thank you.
This is a first school board meeting. I'm super nervous. I'm not a public speaker. I am, however, a registered nurse. I also have my bachelor's degree. Been a nurse for 13 years. I'm your frontline person here. I've been doing it since the beginning. And I don't know where she went. I've worn a mask, an N95, goggles, a shield, a gown, and double gloved. And guess who had COVID? And guess who survived? So you think that little piece of material on your face, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Like I said, I had on an N95. I mean, I was garbed head to toe, just like you see in the news. That was me. My real reason for coming up here is I have a question about a grant that the state of Pennsylvania received. I may not be right on my figures. It was either 78 or $87 million for a company called Ginkgo Bioworks to come in and test our students in the classrooms. Is that something that's going to be done? Is that something that you all have heard of? Is that something that's going to go down? I've heard it's going to be grouped testing. It will be random children in a classroom. It will be put into a bag and it will be done as a group, not individualized testing. It would require a parent's consent. My question is that something that the board has heard of and is being addressed?
We were not planning on moving with the Ginkgo at this time.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe we had one more person.
Good evening. My name's Pete Casserly. Everything's kind of been, gone over here 50 times, so I'm going to keep this short. Two things I want to go over: freedom and liability. I'm an Afghan war vet, so freedom's a big thing for me. I didn't go to Afghanistan to come back home and not have the freedom to choose what my kid can and can't do, if he needs to wear a mask or not wear a mask. The other issue that seems to be a big concern of the board is liability. How hard is it to make a form that says, if you opt your child out, you can't sue the school district? We know it's about money. Just put that on the form. We'll sign it. It's easy. That's a solution. And one question I have as far as the vaccines, if you go to the Altoona School website, they have a little blue flyer that's on there from the Department of Health. It's for the first week of school with all the vaccines and how many days you have to get the vaccines, like hepatitis, tetanus, measles, chickenpox, etc. On that form, it specifically says, let me find it on here so I can read it word for word. It says the requirements allow for the following exemptions: medical, religious, philosophical, strong moral, or ethical conviction. So we can opt out of any of those vaccines, but we can't opt out of a mask. We need a doctor's excuse? Are you kidding me? I already know 4 people on the board how they feel, and they're probably not going to change their mind, but I'm hoping the 5 that voted on the 25th have the strength to stand up like the rest of the people that are here and the ones that couldn't make it. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, there's one more person. Okay, then that should be it, I believe. Okay, we're going to hear this gentleman. What is your name, sir?
Okay, my name is RJ Stiver. I'm from the city of Altoona.
RJ, what's your last name again?
Stiver, S-T-I-V-E-R. I just want you to know, first of all, this is just a fraction of people that are against this. I started a Facebook group on Friday afternoon. I've got 700 people that are standing behind me that do not want this. I think everybody that spoke here tonight has already made all the points about the medical end of things. It's no secret about the $38 million the school board is going to receive if they comply. I think that's what a lot of this is about. There's another rumor floating around that I would like to have some clarification on or some verification on, if you would answer. I've also heard that superintendents and their staff are having their certifications and their retirement threatened for non-compliance. And if that's true, if that isn't coercion, I don't know what is. It is not about the safety of my kids. It's about your pockets. I feel that all this is to pay for this right here. Seems like all we care about is sports. Like that gentleman back there mentioned, we're not doing very good on education. And it is my choice. Listen, if my kid falls at school and goes to the nurse and has a scrape on his knee, that nurse cannot administer Neosporin to his cut without my consent, but you can wrap his face in a cloth for 7 hours without my consent? I don't think so. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that concludes our public comment for tonight. I would like to make a motion that we eliminate the doctor's excuse that is needed for Section 3 exemption. And the time period to get that back to the school would be 7 days. So that's my motion. Do I have a second?
What's your motion?
To not require a doctor's excuse for Section 3 exemption.
Then they wouldn't need to worry about the amount of time.
I can't hear you.
Then they wouldn't need to worry about the amount of time it turned in.
Okay, that's fine. We don't need a doctor's excuse. The time then is not necessary, but no doctor's excuse. And there are other school districts that are doing this. So
I second it.
okay, ma'am, we're not done yet. Okay, I made that motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Can we have a roll call vote on this, please?
No, you got just gonna ask any question. I think that people that have a known asthma, like the lady said her child had, we knew that the kid had asthma for 6 years. He shouldn't need it. He shouldn't be masked at all. He should just have, he should not be masked. He shouldn't need a doctor's excuse. And anyone else's kid that the district knows has asthma, they shouldn't need a doctor's excuse. So that's how I feel about it. But people that need it, and we know they don't need a mask, shouldn't have to get a doctor's excuse. Now, unfortunately, some people are going to go and say that, you know, they have a condition and they don't. They just want to get out of wearing a mask. So where are we at?
Okay, we're discussing this as a board, please.
But I understand and I agree that those that already have pre-existing conditions should not be asked for a doctor's excuse or a mask.
But I don't know how you differentiate between the two, because there are situations where a child can't wear a mask, and I think it should be left up to the parent.
Please, ladies and gentlemen. If a child had an exemption last year from a mask, that exemption should have been carried over.
But apparently it hasn't been.
If there was an exemption for an IEP or a 504 from last year, that should have been carried over. If it wasn't carried over, the principal needs to be made aware, and we will take care of that tomorrow morning.
Okay, folks, please. The motion that I made does not require a doctor's excuse for a Section 3 exemption, and we have a second. So is there any more discussion among board members?
So basically what we're suggesting is that once again, we go back and we're going to say of what we voted on a week ago, and we're going to say it's up to the parent's choice, correct?
Yes. This is for the doctor excuse, though, for Section 3 exemption. That's what we're talking about right now.
So we're,
And I feel it's up to the parents.
I have a question. If we do approve this, will the people who voted yes to approve it also vote yes for a tax increase to pay any legal fees that may occur as a result? Well, I'm just saying legal suits don't only come about.
Please, let him speak.
You know, this is a board meeting, a business meeting. You folks had your chance to speak. Now have respect and let us conduct our business. That's all we're asking. Well, you can also be polite and let us do what we have to do. All right, I'm just saying that lawsuits come for a whole lot of different reasons. I know there are legislators and others saying that they would like to see this governor's mandate appealed and eliminated. So I believe there is a court case coming up here in 6 or 7 days that
On the 16th.
may just do that. But in the meantime, we have this mandate that, yes, the governor put on us. We did have a plan approved by the board that basically gave parents the option about masking, but the governor's mandate overrides any plan that we have in place. It's all right. I'm talking to the board. I'm really not talking to you. Do you understand? Well, I'm here as a volunteer also to serve you.
Okay,
All right.
we're trying to get to the point where we can take a vote on this, and we have to have discussion. We have to have it
Right.
open to the whole board before that would happen. So if you can please give us a little bit of time to go back and forth on this, I would appreciate it.
But this was put on us through this governor's mandate that, you know, it looks like if we don't approve or if we go against this mandate, there's, you know, it's not so much we're threatened to lose the COVID relief money, but the threat to the district to lose your liability insurance in any COVID related issue. And there's also personal penalties. Now, this mandate applies not only to public schools, but also all parochial and private schools. So it's not like it's just for the Altoona School District, it's for every school across the state of Pennsylvania, even preschools. Holidays, okay, so my thoughts are, as long as there's a mandate in place, all of us took an oath when we became board members to make sure that all state and federal laws and mandates are followed. We didn't have in that oath that we'll only follow those that we agree with. It's basically, if it's a law, we're expected as a board to enact it. So as long as like I said, I'm speaking to the board. So if if I was chairman, I would tell you right now, the next one that speaks out like that will be removed, but I'm not chairman. All right. But I did conduct meetings for 18 years in Logan Township. And believe me, we had many contentious issues like this one is. Not everybody leaves the room happy, okay? But we'll leave the room with a decision made. But anyways, as I was saying, the mandate, it's not just for Altoona School District. It's not about money. The governor is basing this through the Department of Health, that it's a safety issue. And unless that mandate is overturned, it's still the mandate. I mean, the court decision may be to have a stay on this. In other words, it'll stay in place. It may be that there'll be an injunction to cease and desist where it goes away. And then we revert back to our plan, which is basically to have people on a voluntary basis decide whether their child would wear a mask. But as long as the mandate is in place, it is the law that we're expected to follow. And I would assume that our solicitor, you know what? I'm speaking.
Please, sir.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you right now, if you don't stop, you should be removed from here. Well,
No, you can be asked to maintain order.
We have
One
to
at a time.
discuss this, please. Please, just bear with us.
I sort of lose my train of thought, you know, when I get interrupted, but I do feel that as long as the mandate is in place, that we should follow the law as stated.
Okay, well, here's my problem with that. Here is the mandate. I have the mandate, and it does not say in there a doctor's excuse is required. That's how Holiday Code is able to come up with what they've come up with. They're not requiring a doctor's excuse. It does not say a doctor's excuse is
What it
required.
does say though, but what it does say is that when a parent
Please.
when a parent sends a letter to the school district saying that your child has a health condition, it automatically triggers the school district doing an evaluation either under 504 or IDEA. And under 504, it mandates a doctor giving you a medical diagnosis of the child. I agree with Dave. If we already have those diagnoses in place, we should be using them. So children who have 504 plans or IEPs that identify certain health conditions like asthma or certain emotional conditions, I feel that should be accepted, you know, to proceed with exempting the child from wearing a mask. You know, I heard the lady say about how her child has asthma and had to sit in the back of the room. That is wrong. That is not something should ever happen in Altoona School District or any school district. I worked in this district for 42 years. The entire time I dealt with special education as a teacher, school psychologist, director of special ed, and I know quite a bit about special education. And I know what happened to that child was not right and needs to be rectified. But I think as long as we as a board have taken the oath to uphold laws, it's just like a police officer. They enforce laws whether they like them or not. And that is our duty. If that law or mandate is voided, then we can go back to the health plan that we voted on August 25th. But for now, I don't see I don't agree with Sharon. I think that you're opening Pandora's box by saying you're not going to require doctor's excuses.
Like I say, I'm looking at section 3, and there's nothing in there that says anything about a 504, that you're required to have a doctor's excuse, and another district has already developed their plan without a doctor's excuse.
And they probably were told by their solicitor and superintendent that is not in compliance with that law. I'm sure they were told that.
Well, I'm reading it here and it's not in there.
Let's cut in here. All right, we have our solicitor sitting right here. Let's ask our solicitor. If we do this, are we violating the spirit of the mandate by simply saying any parent can write a issue down, say their child has some illness, and we do not ask for any kind of documentation whatsoever other than the parents? Would you recommend the board go in that direction, or would you recommend against it as against the spirit of the mandate?
As I stated before, the Pennsylvania Department of Education provided guidance on this issue as of 4/15 this past Friday, indicating the school districts should follow their typical and customary practices for determining student eligibility for accommodations in accordance with Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act. There should be flexibility within this approach. People that have students who have records of pre-existing conditions, whether or not they've been accommodated, should be given consideration as has been discussed tonight, and there should not be obstacles imposed for those who already have IEP and 504 plans in place. The recommendation, as reiterated by PDE, is to follow the typical eligibility processes that you normally have in place, including those that would require medical documentation. There's going to be a need for flexibility. Nobody was able to have a doctor's note by Tuesday morning for an order that was announced on August 31st and had to be communicated to families over a holiday weekend. There's an expectation that the school district would work with parents on this issue, including hearing the concerns raised about getting cooperation from local doctors. However, the recommendation that we reiterate is the same that was posted by PDE on Friday at 4:15, which was to follow typical processes under Section 504 for determining eligibility, including any medical documentation that would normally be required.
And those typical practices in the Altoona Area School District always include documentation by a professional such as a physician, correct?
Yes. I can't answer that.
So our past practices have always included documentation.
Yes.
So if what I just heard you say was you have recommended or informed the board that it would not be wise to go against past practice, it would not be wise to basically throw out what this mandate says and make our own rules at this time, because that would put our school district at a disadvantage when it comes to some kind of a legal outcome, correct?
I stated what I stated. I stated what the recommendation was from PDE. The board is fully aware of its obligations to comply with the mandate as a result of the order. That is what changed between August 25th and now. On August 31st, the governor issued an order indicating that there must be a mask mandate and that school districts must comply with it. For those that have arguments with regard to the validity of a mandate versus a law and all the different other statutes and issues it raised this evening, those arguments could all be very valid and very true, but they need to be determined and ruled upon by a court. And a court is being presented with those arguments and will be addressing them in a hearing to be held on September 16th. Until that point, the order remains in place and the school district, like any other school entity, has to comply with it to the extent of requiring the masks unless there is a Section 3 exception. The guidance that's currently been issued by the Pennsylvania Department of Education with regard to the Section 3 exceptions that implicate medical exemptions are to follow normal Section 504 processes. The greatest degree of concern regarding penalties and violations of law that can be imposed as a result of a mandate are those that have to do with not enforcing it at all and that have to do with willfully violating it or willfully failing to enforce it. Part of the enforcement obligation includes conducting a legitimate evaluation of claims for medical exemption, and the guidance that we've been given by the Pennsylvania Department of Education is to follow your typical 504 practices.
And once again,
I'm just going to stand on what I've stated now. I'm not going to do paraphrasing. That's the recommendation.
I will reiterate what I just heard. That is, our past practice in the Altoona Area School District that has never been an issue is that we present documentation asking a physician to justify any kind of accommodation. We have never before done where we just said a parent can send in saying my son has this or my daughter has this, and we will go along with that accommodation. That's what I heard. I believe that's what I heard. I believe that's correct. I tend to listen to the solicitor when the solicitor gives me advice about what will keep our school district out of trouble in the courts.
Okay, I'd like to say something if that's okay.
Sure.
So I guess I'm looking at this from a parent perspective, and my son was diagnosed with asthma as a youngster. He's beginning to outgrow it as he gets older, but I never had any 504 plan or medical exemption because he didn't require medication during the day. So I didn't need that. He took his medication in the morning and at night. So it would be on file with the doctor, but with the doctors not giving excuses, that would have been an issue for me if he was having a problem with the mask. So I'm just stating my own experience and how we could have students with medical conditions that are not documented. It was on my emergency care card. I would have put it on my emergency care card as one of his medical conditions, but I wouldn't have had a plan in place at school.
And I agree, the parent would know best. So I agree with what you're saying, Kelly.
If we extend the amount of time that they have to go and get the doctor's excuse until this plays out in the courts, are we still following the mandate? Say we made it 30 days or 15 days.
I think it's perfectly reasonable to be flexible with the amount of time that you offer for parents to get the documentation that they need to substantiate what they're presenting to the school officials. And as long as you're working with them. If they're presenting information like we've heard this evening about doctors not cooperating with them, the expectation, as I stated before, would be that you could take a flexible and fair approach, accept a parent's signature initially, as the school district has already done, and continue to work with those parents who are indicating that they're having problems. Whether the time frame is 7 days or 14 days or more, I think should be based on what you're hearing from the parents and their efforts to get this documentation.
And I think that's, that just gives us more time. Let's the courts work this out. The 16th, that's only 7 days away. So I think that would be a good compromise if we went like 30 days and just as long as the parents were shown that they're trying to work with the doctors, even if the doctor isn't.
I think what we're hearing is the doctors are refusing to get involved in this. They don't want to be part of this at all. I think that's the frustration.
I really think this would be reason that the courts might consider making this void. And I think those who are saying this, they can't get their doctor to sign that their child has these problems, need to contact their local legislators and let them know.
Now listen, please.
Let them know that the school's really in a bind. We didn't make this law, but we are expected to enforce it. Well, we're not arguing that solicitor told us. I listened to the solicitor, not to people in the audience, whether it's a law. So the point is, I think this is probably going to be information that the court needs to consider. Even the fact that we as school boards have meetings like this that are so contentious. I mean, our job is to educate kids. And this just adds another layer of issues that it has become totally political. And unfortunately, it distracts from what our main mission is. And I know you don't like us here, that's fine, but we're here by choice and we're here to serve our community. And those things that we decide aren't always easy and we don't always agree, but we do have to make decisions. And we're being told right now that if we want to alter or make any alterations to the mandate as written, we have to approve it as a board. Otherwise, the mandate is as it is. So Mrs. Bream has a motion on the floor to alter this, to where the doctors would not have to write what the child's condition is. It's just taking from the parent. And I heard Eric say that he wanted to give more time. Well, perhaps during that time, this will become void. I don't know. But we do have to decide whether or not this mandate's going to be implemented as written.
Okay, I have something to say. Can I speak?
Yes, you can, Ed.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I don't know if anyone saw this, but it was issued today by the district attorney's office, and they will not prosecute any criminal citations for alleged violations of the Department of Health social masking mandate issued on August 31st, 2021. Furthermore, we hereby direct the Blair County Law Enforcement to not issue any criminal citations enforcing this order. That was issued today.
I saw that as well, Ed. I know what you're talking about.
Anything else, Ed?
No, but obviously the DA's office is not abiding by this either.
I'm going to just speak, if I could, please. First of all, I apologize if my actions were inappropriate prior. But no, may I? But I want people to understand. You have been shouting us down all evening. This is not a situation that I wanted to be in at all. I cannot recommend to the board that we do anything that will weaken and or circumvent the mandate. That is my position as a superintendent of schools. Every superintendent in the state is in the same bind that I am. And I'm the guy who stands at the bus stop this morning and says, hey guys, cover your nose, cover your nose, cover your nose. These are realities that we have to deal with. As the Solicitor Liz Benjamin stated, this has to be settled in the courts. That doesn't mean we have a pass not to follow the state mandate. It was very specific on Friday that regardless of what the board feels or regardless of the position that the school district takes, the mandate is to be enforced and we will be held accountable. I can't speak to why the pediatricians and the doctors are taking the position they're taking. Okay. This is just hard for all of us. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so the motion is to not require a doctor's excuse. Now, Eric brought up about extending that time past the date of the hearing on this issue.
I think when we need to vote on the motion, and then if it passes, it passes. If not, perhaps another motion could be made.
That's
that would
correct,
include-
unless he was offering that as an amendment to this motion, which then you could determine. But if otherwise he's just proposing a different motion, then it would just go one at a
Okay,
time.
then we will go forward and vote on no doctor excuse required for a Section 3 exemption from the mandate that was put out by the state last week. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Mrs. Bream,
Yes.
Mr. Francis, Mr. Hoff, Mr. Hoover,
No.
Mrs. Irwin Adams, Mr. Johnston, Mr. Cruz,
Yes.
Mrs. McGinnis,
I am in your shoes. I am in your shoes.
Please.
Can you rephrase for me? Yes is to
Not have any doctor's excuse at all. No is to not support that. Doesn't mean you could not vote.
no. Dr. Malloy,
No.
motion fails.
Motion failed.
Can I make a motion?
Yes.
There are further motions to be made. Now would be the time to make them.
Okay, yes.
I would like to make a motion that we allow for a parent exemption up until after the legal case on the 16th. And then we can revisit the issue based on the legality of the mandate. So that would just be allowing a couple extra days for, to see if this mandate holds.
I'll second that, Kelly.
Could I make a suggestion going along with that? Could we ask parents not necessarily to get their doctor to write them a note exempting them from masking, but just diagnosing them with their issue? So if they were to go to their doctor and say, you know, this causes my son has a mental health issue, could they go to their doctor and have their doctor diagnose them with that? And then that to us allows us to know that that child suffers from that issue. Example, asthma. You know, I'm thinking of a mother who has a kindergarten child. So her son never had to go to the doctors to have a 504 plan for his asthma. Could she go and bring documentation that her son has asthma and that this, not necessarily asking the doctor to exempt him from the masking, but letting us know he has asthma, and because of that, I would like him to be opted out of the mask because it's showing he legitimately does have that problem.
But wouldn't that have to be up
But you
to the
wouldn't have to
doctor?
go, my thought is you wouldn't have to go to your doctor and ask them to exempt you from the mask. My thought would be that you go and get documentation that your son does indeed have asthma or your son does indeed have anxiety, because you know they're listing that on their emergency cards. So could they just simply show proof that their son has that problem?
I think to expand on that, Stephanie, I think what we may want to consider is if the doctor would just render a diagnosis. For example, my doctor would render I'm diabetic and an old man. Okay, put that in writing. And then the parent gets that into school, and then either the nurse or school personnel, perhaps the principal, whoever Dr. Parental would designate, would contact the parent to discuss the issue. Okay, your child is asthmatic, your child is fearful wearing masks, or has a high anxiety level. Let's discuss it with the parent. Is it going to do harm? And then make a decision. But you do have a doctor's diagnosis that the child does have a problem.
Correct.
will a
That's my
doctor
thought,
do
is
that?
to have that doctor, I would not even go to my doctor asking for exemption from a mask. I would say, I need to provide documentation that my child has asthma.
Right.
And leave it at that.
Right.
You know, they're not going, I was appalled to see the fact that there was a pediatrician putting on social media before even talking to a parent that they are just not providing exemptions without even hearing from the parent. I think that's appalling, because there are children that have needs that need to be met. So I think that's appalling. So my thing is, I would just ask my doctor to provide documentation that my son has asthma, provide that with the school and say, listen, here's the documentation. My son was diagnosed with asthma. Can we look at an exception for him? And then go from there.
But
Can we use yours?
No.
Can we use yours as a motion? Can we do your motion?
Well,
and
I
then-
already have a motion.
Mine is still on the floor.
Yeah, we still have a
Can
motion.
we table her? Because I agree with
Well-
Ms. McGinnis that she has the right one.
Why don't we vote on
Can we-
Kelly's motion?
Can we
and-
discuss my motion? Because I
Certainly.
actually have a couple things to say
It's
about
real
it.
hard to discuss when we keep getting interrupted.
Go
Now, would
ahead,
you
Kelly.
please keep quiet, or you should be removed from the meeting if you can't sit there. All right? You had a chance to ask questions and make comments. Now, this is a board action.
And here we
Okay,
go.
I think Kelly would like to bring
And
forth
here
some
we
more
go.
information, please.
So my motion was to allow this to take place until the court has decided the legality of the mandate. I think that by adding a doctor's diagnosis, that everyone's not going to have an appointment with the doctor tomorrow. So I do see that as a little bit of an issue. And I'm not saying that I disagree with it, but I think that after the 17th, once we revisit it, or after the 16th, once we revisit it, that could be one of our exemptions.
Can
So,
I-
and I just want to say, like, I voted 2 weeks ago or whatever to go with optional masks. with that being said, I think it is the parent's choice. I have chosen, because everyone is all over the board on this, I have chosen to mask my children. And that's my option. So just because I voted for parent choice, I have a lot of people that are for masking that are criticizing me. I'm not opposed to masking. I'm saying that I think it should be parental choice. And I think until this mandate, the legality is worked out, that we need to allow for some exemptions and some exceptions until we know if it's going to stick. And then we need to really revisit, especially with the doctors not allowing for doctors' excuses.
I agree.
Can I add something along with that? Because we're talking about the exemption, Kelly. Are you talking about, for instance, a child says, they'll come in and say, I don't know, I have asthma. I don't have it documented. I'm not going to see a doctor, but I have asthma. Are you saying until that person sees a doctor or gets the diagnosis, they go without a mask?
My thing would be that they use the exemption form that the district has provided, that they're going to look at getting a medical excuse, but they will have until the time period of the courts.
So, and let me explain the obvious. The obvious, what about the other kids? What about the other kids that don't have a medical exemption and are going to be around the kids that claim to have a medical exemption? What about their health and safety, Kelly?
Well, my kids have been in that boat since the beginning, Rick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that
Kelly,
concern you?
I would
No.
like to make a motion to just add to yours. Liz said that we could go with your motion and then add that once that time period comes, if that legislation is not worked out, then what we could do is move forward with allowing parents just to provide that their child is diagnosed with a condition. And to answer questions that people are asking in the audience, to me, you know, I know what my son can handle, but I don't know what your son can handle. If they are having allergies and they are sniffling and things like that, and then they're constantly, I mean, I taught kindergarten for 11 years, so I know how often kids, just like I am, are touching their face and doing all of those things. So my thought is though, like, you know, maybe to you, you know that your son's allergies are causing more touching to the face with their hands. So you know best as the parent to that. So my suggestion is adding to what Kelly is suggesting and just putting, we'll go to that date of the legislation. And then if that moves one way or another, then we look to just providing documentation, not that you need exempt from the mask, but that your child does have a medical condition.
I would be okay with that, but I think then we're also going to have to allow a little bit of time
Correct.
for the parents to gain that
Correct.
Is the
information.
Is the entire time we're waiting where that child is not going to be masked?
Yes, and I believe the mandate.
That
states
child,
that.
I
That
mean,
is correct.
the mandate still stands, so the majority of students will be masked.
Right. And I believe the
So
mandate does.
once again, I'm going to come back to something we haven't talked about in a while. I'm going to come back and talk about the fact that right now, I believe we have about 128 students on quarantine. And we have, I believe, if I'm not incorrect, 28 people have tested positive as of today. And our numbers are up from last week and our numbers continue to go up every week that we're in school.
That's
And
correct.
there
but
are parents.
With
that are
universal
scared.
masking,
There are parents that believe this virus is real. There are parents that believe it's a pandemic. There are parents who are worried about their kids' health as well as the health of their families. And I think that what we're saying is, well, if you say you have a condition, we're not going to ask you to mask for 17 days. So in that 17 days, you're going to be around other students who could be in a compromising position.
right, but they have been since the beginning of school, and they have the option to go with the cyber school if they feel more comfortable with that.
And so do the kids. And by the way, so do the kids is that option available for the students that don't want to wear masks?
Yes.
It's
Yes.
intended, I want to remind you, what you're talking about is a form that in which the parent says, my child has a medical condition and they need a medical exemption. And
Yes.
so it's not a form that a parent signs and I get out of the mask requirement.
No, I understand that. What I'm saying is, we're gonna require evidence or proof of that. And what we are saying is that we're gonna extend the period of time they get, let's say it's 10 days, or I think it's 7 right now. What is the degree of extension that we're gonna put out there that we're gonna say it's okay not to wear a mask?
Well,
Before we have proof.
I would say right now it was 5 days for this week. The court case is taking place on the 16th. I believe the school board meets again on the 20th, so I think we could revisit it then.
And I'd like to suggest to both Stephanie and Kelly that we consider this to be school days, not calendar days. And the other thing is, I'd like to compliment Kelly and Stephanie for coming up with what looks like a way to comply with the mandate, but also be sensitive to the information that parents are having difficulties getting doctors to write diagnoses, so that the mask mandate wouldn't be in effect for their child. It's not appropriate for your child, but I think it's a good compromise, is my opinion.
Thank you.
Personally, Stephanie, I think you did a great job, getting the situation under hand. That was a good idea in your report, and I'm for it, so.
Okay, so we are amending your motion to include 7 days?
Can I?
No, my motion was that we would allow for a parent exemption with maybe even the district form on hand right now until after the court case takes place on the 16th.
Okay.
So
If I may offer a friendly recommendation. We have 5 days currently, which is 5 school days, which is a full week. And I would say we go to 10 school days, which is 2 weeks, which gets us to the board meeting, which gets us past the potential court case and its resolution.
that's good with me.
And I do apologize for the 6 feet comment that came earlier today, or the child who was isolated. That was caused by a misinterpretation. It will be taken care of tomorrow. We are required to keep 3 feet distance. And we will, it will go to 3 feet, but the 6 feet was my miscommunication to my staff today.
And that's between students. Okay, so back to our motion. Do you want to give the motion again? Because
Okay,
I
so-
seconded, I just want to make sure what I'm.
My motion was to extend the district letter where the parent can exempt the student with a medical condition upon trying to get a doctor's excuse until after the court case on the 16th. So it would be 10 school days, I think is what I'm hearing you guys would like.
10 school days takes us through to that.
And then
through that Monday.
we'll revisit it at the board meeting on September 20th.
Okay, I'm in agreement with that.
And we'll add to that motion that upon that, we would not necessarily require a doctor's note as an exemption, just documentation or confirmation that their child is diagnosed with something they see to require them to be exempt from the mask wearing, whether that be, that I think that would be up to the parent, that confirmation of what they see to exempt their child.
I think that's the most important part of the motion, so I agree with that.
And I think once we vote on this, I do think if you would just wait 2 minutes so we can just reiterate so that if you're leaving here and you feel that your child needs an exemption, you fill out that form that the district provided, turn that in. You do not need to keep your child home from school in the meantime, as far as I'm understanding. Fill out that form, send your child to school, and then let's work together to get what's best for your child. And we'll cross that bridge here with what we said. You fill out that form, we go the 10 days. and then, and I believe Dr. Parental did say that that will be rectified, that segregation will not take place again.
We were told that no child was segregated that filled out that exemption today.
Right.
And
Excuse me, that I can't even begin to answer that in this setting. Okay. If you can contact us, we will investigate that and correct that. In the elementary schools, they were told to super social distance, which was a minimum of 6 feet. So I'm sure that there were children that were offset because of that. Okay. We're gonna fix it tomorrow.
Okay, can we call the question on this, please?
Okay, so the motion has been amended then to include what
to
Stephanie wants in it or
include
not?
that as long as they have some sort of medical documentation stating that not providing an exemption, but just supporting the medical condition.
Okay,
Yes,
but none of this will take place until after the court hearing on the 16th.
correct.
Okay. So
That would be, and I would say that to you as the parent, if you're saying that requires them to be exempt and you have proof from their doctor that, or confirmation, that they suffer that, then I would say that would be acceptable. Right. And I think that would be acceptable.
Could we call the question, please?
okay, could we have a roll call vote on this, please?
May I reread this to ensure I have it worded correctly? Extend the parental exemption for a medical condition documentation for 10 school days and thereafter accept medical diagnosis.
Correct, yes.
Mr. Francis,
Yes.
Mr. Hoff,
Yes.
Mr. Hoover,
Yes.
Mrs. Irwin Adams,
Yes.
Mr. Johnston,
Yes.
Mr. Cruz,
Yes.
Mrs. McGinnis,
Yes.
Dr. Malloy,
Yes.
Mrs. Bream,
Yes.
unanimous.
Okay, so that gets us past the hearing date and hopefully we'll prevail in that hearing and this will go away. That's what we're hoping. Okay, anyone else?
Yes, before we end, it's very important that we recognize exactly what all our employees are doing at this time. This has been, as we can see, a very contentious beginning to the school year. And I will say this because I've said it at every meeting. The teachers in this Altoona area school district do what us elected members of the board tell them to do. They are not refusing to do anything. They are not implementing anything on their own. They are doing what they are charged to do by the board of directors. If you have a problem with that, bring it to the board of directors, not the teachers. They are doing an outstanding job along with every other employee we have. And I thank our Altoona Police Department for being here tonight and doing such a good job. Thank you, guys.
And I do want to impress upon you, contact your legislatures. This is where this all started, was in Harrisburg, and you need to contact your state representative and your state senator and let them know how you feel about this, and hopefully they can get something done down there. A meeting adjourned.